Every child deserves to have some sort of drug awareness education. And I strongly believe every child needs to have some sort of someone to speak to.
Yeah.
They have the confidence. And I strongly believe that we all need some sort of therapy.
Today we're discussing something that affects every school, every classroom, every safeguarding team, every foster carer, every parent and every professional who works with children. Because somewhere in your school right now, there is a child who is struggling, a child whose behaviour has changed, a child who is becoming withdrawn, a child who is angry, a child who is being exploited, a child carrying trauma that nobody can see. The question is whether we recognise those signs early enough to do something about it. Joining me today is Paul Hannaford, whose story has impacted thousands of young people across the UK through his powerful talks on addiction, gangs, county lines, violence and recovery. Paul, before we get into the conversation, can you tell us what your work looks like right now?
Well, to be honest with you, it's not really changed in terms of the delivery. It's just the volume of kids has got increased.
Yeah.
Because I think when I first started, you know, it was with a group of 10 kids in a youth club. And then obviously 15 years later, I got to 1 million children. But what I had to do was obviously I had to go out and tell my story. And then people in education got to hear about it, the impact of it. So I think it's just, as I said, the stories, I've tailored it slightly. You know, going to primary schools, it's slightly tailored. Still showing all my images of me in hospital, my legs and that. But I think today the story is more relevant because we're looking now at, you know, this word trauma is massive. And there's more schools opening now. I was in one the other day, SEN schools, special needs schools for children, special educational needs. Even in normal comprehensive schools, they're being overloaded with children that obviously certain behaviours through maybe trauma. And it's putting a bit of a strain on the school.
Yeah.
So I think now we're having to look at the big picture here of are we actually, you know, targeting more kids with trauma or ignoring it, and then later on in life is that spilling into behaviour that's then irreversible. You know, I guess with me as a kid, you know, I was never diagnosed with anything. I had a lot of trauma as a kid, never spoke to anybody about it. You know, I think that might have been the problem. And then I fell into that world of substance misuse, gang life. You know, I found something. You know, and I think trauma, you know, if you look at trauma, what is trauma? You know, psychologically, emotionally, mentally, something that affected me. And then I couldn't get rid of it. I didn't know how to get rid of it. You know, so I think it's important that, you know, as we were discussing this, the avenues we can take to identify this, and the people that are working with the kids, you know, to give them the courage to speak out and say, do you need help, rather than the child just sit there sometimes. Might be coming from a home where there's dysfunction, it's broken. They might not have the confidence, you know.
I hear what you're saying in terms of there's so much trauma, you're seeing it more, you're obviously being invited back to all the schools to engage with different groups of children. You're sharing the message, and I get the sense that actually now what you're saying is, what are people doing about it within those frameworks of schools, you know, safeguarding roles, etc., to make sure that if they see these signs, action is taken around it.
I was at a head teachers conference a little while ago doing a talk with head teachers, and they said it sort of makes sense. And we got to remember is a school is a really busy, stressful environment. Yeah, you've got 1,000 kids in the school. You know, it's even when I go into a school, they have to collapse all their timetable, and you know, there's a lot of work to be done. Even me to go in for 1 hour, you know, and sit with the kids. But I think today, I said to head teachers, it's like trying to identify boys and girls. But you know, I'm not saying leave the girls out. Obviously, girls witness trauma, go through trauma just as much as boys do. But if we look at the majority of men in prison, it's a lot more than women. If you look at the majority of gang members and violence and, you know, and drug taking, it's a lot more men than... So I think if boys like me as a kid are coming from a home maybe where there's no dad, that's trauma. And we look at divorce rates, highest ever. So, you know, it's trauma for any boy to grow up without a dad, or especially if he's been if he's born without a dad, I get it, you know, he's just used to his mother. But if he's had a dad in his life and they split up at a certain age and he's got that emotional connection to his dad, like I had, and then overnight he's taken away from me. And it was like, you know, I never recovered from that for a long time. And then, so I think the schools should really look at boys and girls, but look at boys and go, you know, are you coming from a home where there's no dad? And have certain classrooms with male teachers. No respect to female teachers, they do a great job, I've got 1,000. But with men, PE teachers, men, that the boys can sit there and actually open up and talk about what's going on for them. Because as you said at the beginning, there are many kids going to schools full of trauma that want to speak to somebody, but they ain't got that confidence to reach out. Some kids, you know, I said I go to many schools and some kids are really confident, but some are really shy, but they've all got a question to ask me, because I notice when I come out of when I finish my assembly, I say any questions, you find the younger ones are really confident, really confident. The primary school kids probably haven't experienced much trauma as probably a secondary school kid. When I go to secondary schools, I say any questions, they're so shy. They're not as confident. You get the odd question, but then when I finish my talk, they'll come up in little groups and they want to ask me stuff. Well, tell me stuff about them. They're not asking me, they want to tell me stuff. So what you've done is, I think, you know, sharing a story or saying to them, look, you know, you can speak about your feel, it's okay, you know. And it gives kids courage. And I think if we just keep giving children maths, English, PE, drama, history, which is a foundation of any kid's academic development, that's okay for a job. But what about, as we talk about the PSHE, which is the lessons they give, personal, social, economic health, and that's where it all comes in. Their mental health is paramount. Paramount.
I mean, I've had teachers on podcasts before, and I think we spoke about it on the last time, and you mentioned it previously, that rigid timetable and the tick box exercises that the teachers have got to go through. It doesn't really give them enough space to be able to say, well, I've seen this kid, I've spotted a sign, I need to do something about it, when it's so time constricted what they're doing. So it's almost like, do the schools then need to bring in extra people that are available to take on that role? So if the teacher's too busy with the academic side, they can then signpost to this person. But one pastoral lead or one safeguarding per school isn't really enough, is it?
Listen, bringing people in, sadly, and that's going to sound sad now, and teachers have said this to me, it costs money. And when the school's on a really tight budget, they can't bring in outside people because obviously it's cost effective. There's space and room to get the kids into a certain place to speak to them. But, you know, I think, as I said, it's sad really that you think, you know, it's all about money, isn't it? And maybe then, you know, we're missing opportunities here. Or not considering them. You know, you've got to consider every young person's mental health and well-being, from when they come into your care to when they leave it. Because we have a purpose here. School is about creating, you know, normal kids to go out and live a productive, normal life.
Independent life,
And we're looking now, all these schools I'm going to, where there's, as I said, social, emotional, mental health. The school I went to the other day, the kids are severely autistic with Down syndrome, so they have a medical condition. But then we're looking at some of the schools I go to where the boys have been shut out to their behaviours, whether it's ADHD, undiagnosed, at an early age, which obviously can be, you know, looked at and medication can be provided by a doctor and whatever else. And then you look and you think, but, you know, I know the school I went to years ago as a kid, just full of black and white boys, 80% of us had no dads in our life. And I remember they brought someone in from the council once and he lasted 10 minutes. Not his fault, it was just a tick box exercise. And we're all sitting there high on weed, criminal convictions, you know, and he's trying to give us this loving bollocking about, you know, don't commit crime and take drugs. And sadly left, you know. If I had brought a man in, I guess, someone with experience or, you know.
That had walked the path.
Yeah, and give us this real hard-hitting, we respected him. And I think for boys as well, you know, it's important for, you know, my mum did her best with me. You know, she had another 4 boys to bring up, so her hands were full, and I was an absolute nuisance. But, you know, not having a daddy in my life, I think I lost my way a little bit, and I think it's important that even in schools, that boys that have no dad at home can have some sort of male role model in a school. I'm not saying schools don't do that, please believe me. Many schools probably do it, but I'm on about identifying that stuff when they come in year 7, and it's not about, you know, being nosy asking the family, but just say, send a letter out to the parents and say, look, if you've got, we do this 2 days a week where boys can voluntarily come along.
Yeah.
Yeah, with other boys and feel confident enough, because boys might feel uncomfortable with girls in the room talking about man stuff. I get it.
Yeah.
So I strongly believe that if schools were to really look early, as soon as the kids come in year 7, and say, right, for those who haven't got dads, we do this 2 day a week, Monday and a Wednesday for an hour. If you want to get out of maths, kids go, oh, great. But I'm saying where boys can go along with boys at a really early age, at the age of 11, and really emotionally, mentally talk to one another with a male role model.
Yeah.
And, and as I said, I know this is an old cliche, talk about how we feel. It's so important.
So, and really, you mentioned earlier, like the cost of it. And yes, okay, schools we know everywhere really at the moment financially. Yeah. But then when you look at the trajectory of someone that is dismissed, their behaviours are ignored, their traumas are ignored, they're not held in those younger years, the trajectory looks like, well, gangs, crime, prison.
The cost.
Well, what's the cost what is the cost of that going to be 10, 15 years down the line?
Well, I'll tell you the cost will be. For one, when these kids get chucked out of mainstream school because their behaviour, they go to these special educator or SEMH, social emotional mental health they call them. So I'll go to hundreds of them. And, some of them I'll go to, the cost, I went to one in Leeds. I was there for 3 days and they had 3 sites. I'll give you a prime example of cost. So I went to these 3 sites. Over the 3 days, the taxi company that this school use, they use 150 taxis a day, twice a day. So 50 kids get picked up in the morning from their house, taken to the school, picked up from the school. So when I was at the school, it was like a military service. They had walkie-talkies, all the cabs. So I got speaking to the cab drivers or whatever. And one cab driver said that obviously the council were fitting the cab bill, and it was like 2 million a year just to sort out these 150 kids in taxis. And you look and you think, that's without the staff. Yeah. For every one kid, there was a member of staff because they have to have really real one-to-one stuff. Yeah. So you've got a staff member on X amount of, you know what I mean? So that cost there, where if you was to invest 10% of that taxi bill and the cost of the teachers, educating just 50 kids into the school is 1,000, then you could identify more behaviours and get less exclusions.
Yeah.
And then, so it's all, I was saying earlier, the prison, what's it cost when a man goes to prison for 12 months, no matter what crime it is, it's £55,000 now. I served many prison sentences. I didn't obviously, come out of it and now be committing crime again. I didn't deal with my drug problem. And there are a lot of men in prison, with mental health problems. A lot of men coming from a fatherless. They say now probably 70% of all men in prison come from a fatherless home. That's documented around the world, that is. So I think it's important that when children are going to school, boys and girls, and you can try and get them to have the courage to say, look, we do this thing once a week with the boys if you want to come along, or girls as well with a classroom. They might, and then give them that choice. And I think then you probably identify more stuff, do a bit more work around them. And then when they get to 12, 13, 14, if they've really dealt with I'm not professional in this, but if they've really dealt with some of the trauma and it's given them a little bit more confidence and a better outlook on life, when they get that chance to use a substance, which most people with trauma do at about 13, 14, because the ice cream jelly stops, doesn't it?
Yeah.
When we're 11, it's ice cream and jelly, yeah? For me, at 13, 14, it was substance misuse.
Yeah.
And for me, did it take away the pain of me not having a dad in my life? Of course it did. Did the gang life help me, get through life, that bit of security and comfort, even though it was really dysfunctional? They're a lot older than me, So I think that, there's a lot more to be done with children in terms of mental health and trauma. But again, we come and look at the timescale, the cost, bringing people in.
I really like your idea there, they come in at year 7 and there's almost an individualised assessment of each child's circumstances to get that clearer picture of what's going on at home. Not just, where they're
drugs,
at in
alcohol,
English, maths.
addiction.
Yeah, all of that. Again, like the home life, even being part of a blended family and going from dad's house to mum's house. That can be traumatic for a kid, So, and as you say, if they looked at that picture to understand what's going on for the child, Then you're right, adequate support is put in place. Is it therapy? Is it group meetings within the school? Is it a role model that they can lean on and support? Helps them get a better connection with themselves, get a clearer identity away from the trauma, which is going to lead them down a much clearer path.
Of course. What you remember is these schools and all the members of staff in there, every single member of staff in the school went to university to get a degree in education in a certain field. That is their job. So you walk into a classroom, you get delivered a maths lesson, English lesson, and I guess most kids, by the time they get to year 9, they're so familiar with this that, but then at that point, you've got to remember kids' environments change. So if they are going through them first few years, they might be academically brilliant. Brightest kid in the school. But if they've had trauma, and what you said is it's okay to have an assessment of a kid. I don't think you in being intrusive here. We're looking at for the well-being. And say, are you coming from a home with no data? Is there addiction problems at home? Some schools get to know about this, but it's only when I think...
it gets to crisis point.
And you look and I think adults obviously need therapy and have trauma as well. I get it. I'm still, even though I'm coming up for, need 2 decades of in sobriety and being clean and sober, I still need this stuff. It's good for mental health, like we all do. We all need some sort of therapy, I believe. But I think if you experience trauma at a very young age, I think you struggle with it more than you would an adult. But then you've got to look and think, okay, it's just about identifying it as quick as possible and doing that work and sitting with that child and making sure they don't fall into the world of gangs and prison. And I go to lots of prisons now, as you know. In the past 36 months, I've sat in front of 1,000 prisoners, 200 of murderers. And, they told me about their crimes. They're quite horrific, what they did. And a lot of them are coming to the end of their sentence. And the reason I went and spoke to them, because I was in for drug and alcohol-related murders. Each one of them men so far, each man so far, have cost the taxpayer £1 million.
Wow.
So it's 200 million. Just 200 men so far. They're not in out yet. So in prisons, they have to go on a drug-free wing, get 2 years worth of negative urine drug tests. Because obviously if they go in front of the parole board, which I have to after a life sentence, and the parole board look and think, well, the past 2 years you've been getting high in drugs, you're in prison for murder for drugs, we ain't getting you out. You're still a risk to the community. So they go on that.
You've not learned anything.
Of course. So they have to behave themselves for 2 years. That's why I go and talk about recovery and try and get them on the programme. And you look and you think, and I asked all of them, every single man, this was in Wales, Scotland, Ireland prisons. I said, did anyone ever come to you when you was young and talk to you about the consequences of your actions in terms of alcohol? And they said, no, we didn't. Now, I'm not saying if they would have been spoken to at an early age by someone with experience, I'm pretty confident they would have. Some of them men wouldn't have been sitting there today, and there'd be many parents there who wouldn't have to bury their parents, because that's 200 people that had to be buried by their parents as a result of drugs and alcohol. They wasn't even alcoholics or drug addicts.
But they're still impacted.
It's still and you think of the tens of thousands of family members amongst them. That's just 200, by the way. We've got thousands of murderers in this country in prison, costing billions. And you think if you had 200 million and you invested 10% of that, which is what, 20 million, which is a lot of money, into early intervention, trauma, therapy. And
that could make a massive difference.
Unbelievable. And I was saying earlier, I've had a reasonably busy year, but it's probably, if I added it up, the volume of kids I've spoken to this year, this academic year, is probably the lowest in 6 years. And the reason that is because they're cuts.
Finances,
But yet there's lots of money to keep all these men in prison. But there's no money for kids educated about trauma-informed drug misuse, alcohol, and you look and you think, how'd you add that up? Come on.
It's like the system's completely broken, isn't it?
It's back to front. It's back to front. I remember saying, the other day I put a video out, I was off somewhere for a week, and I said, the hardest part of my job is not convincing kids not to take drugs or have the confidence to speak up, carry a knife or join a gang. It's the hardest part of my job is convincing people that have got a funding, that are working with kids, for me to speak to them. Because obviously I'm not saying that, the reason there was zero funding, there's lots of money sitting out there in certain, trusts and drawers, but if you look and you think they're not doing much, And it's sad, really. I said, if we were to really focus on every kid, and that's probably, in terms of numbers, it's not hard. You can walk into a school and sit in front of 200 kids, 5 hours, that's 1,000. So if you've done it over a week, that's 5,000 kids.
Yeah.
It sounds like big numbers, but, I've done that many times. It's exhausting, but, it can be done. But every kid that sits in that hall in front of me have got a future. And there's some there a lot more vulnerable than others. Come from a home where there's alcoholism and addiction, witnessing it, yeah? And we do know that sometimes, I'm not an expert in addiction, but sometimes if the mum and dad are alcoholics or their siblings are, it can sometimes trickle down.
Yeah, it's addiction is a family disease, isn't it?
Yeah,
so it spirals and the ripple effect.
If you're a kid and you're witnessing drug and violence and criminality at home, and then when you get to the 13, 14, then you're probably more at risk of getting into that world because it's so familiar to you.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're coming from a home where the mum, dad, brother, sister, really stable, no alcohol, no addiction, then your chances when you get to 13 is a bit more, I guess, less chance of you going into that world.
Yeah.
And it's them boys or them children that are coming from them homes, and there are many around the country, that we need to get hold of early and do some work with them.
Because really, even when you think about it, you're saying 5,000 kids a week, when you're looking at the cost of 200 murderers that are in prison costing 200.
Well, you think how many men? If I speak to 50,000 children a year, and I keep 5 out of prison, I'd probably keep more. Then for every year they're in prison, that's £250,000. If you also have a look at the costs, actually sit there and go, right, this is what the prison bill costs, $6.5 billion a year to keep 100,000 men in prison. 40% of their men are in for drug-related crimes, addiction. 70% of them will reoffend without a fail. There was a post out the other day I see on LinkedIn, I commented on it about, drug use in prison all-time high. So we've got to start giving these men in prison that are reoffending, not just the kids. All right, if I spoke to 1,000 prisoners in a day and 1,000 kids, the impact I'm going to have on both groups is going to be the kids. Because I'll put 99.9% of them off drugs, especially the A-class, really high addictive, like crack, heroin, spice. If I go and speak to 1,000 prisoners, I'm lucky if I'll get, which is better than none, 10 to probably look and want to go into recovery. But that's 10 that's probably going to stay out of prison and not cost the taxpayer £500,000 a year. So you've got to look, I know we keep talking about money here, but that's what it boils down to. Everyone keeps talking about, I keep hearing politicians saying, public purse, taxpayers' money, public purse. Well, then sit down and come and sit with me and we'll look at how many people in prison, the cost and, and you're looking, and addiction does take lives.
It does.
Not just the person. The people behind the violence, And we do know now shoplifting's through the roof and crime's through the roof and everything's just increasing annually. I spoke to a police officer the other day, he's retired now, and he's desperate to get me into the schools in his town centre. So he's written off to the chief constable to say, look, get Paul in, I've witnessed his work. And it's great that, we've got the police now that are saying that really what you do, no disrespect to the police, we can't. And we do know the police, provide a good service and they're there to,
protect us.
But I think if you've got a police officer in front of a group of boys or girls talk about crime and then I go and sit with them with all my evidence of consequence, I think I have that bit more of an impact. And hence, obviously, we've got the book, we've got YouTube videos, so there's much more of them. I just say to the kids I'm going to school, I'm only telling you 10% of my story. I can't squeeze 23 years of my life into 1 hour. Impossible. But this is where I started. This is the choices I made that I didn't have to make. And I'm, if you look back at that school I was in, with all them boys, I know 3 went off and died from heroin, more than that 4, and 1 passed away a little while ago. And I buried my best friend 4 weeks ago, sadly. He caught up with him, all these years later, at 56. It's just his body won't tolerate it. Then you look at a few of my gang members who one got killed in a gang fight, one killed someone. So he's looking at them. I don't know what happened to
how many boys.
And I'm saying, even though they tried that day, but you're looking, you're thinking, there's so many places now where these boys are just coming through this system. And I'm pretty sure if they had come and got hold of me when I was 11, because that's when my mum dad split up, 11. I had no intention of joining a gang, I had no intention of taking drugs, but I was in a lot of pain. And I fell out with my mum over it because I thought it was her fault. Obviously my dad was an alcoholic. I couldn't see that as a kid. I'm a kid.
Don't understand
I don't understand that.
Yeah.
I'm not spiritually and emotionally well enough to understand that stuff. I'm just in pain. But I couldn't speak to anyone about it.
Yeah.
Until I found a substance and it took the pain away. And then I found a gang, give me protection.
Yeah.
Which my dad would have given me.
Yeah.
I think it's so important that boys have, or girls, as well. Girls might need a dad in life. There's no dad around as well. But I think especially boys as well. If we look at the bigger cost of society, is it men or women in terms of prison, drugs, and crime?
And again, I think the latest big cost, shall we say, to the NHS is this ketamine problem. Massive. Because of this whole bladder issue that comes about. Yeah. I was listening to a talk a couple of weeks ago, and the lady was speaking was saying how quick it is for this ketamine bladder issue to materialise. Yeah. It's only 2 years of use.
Less than that.
And she said, actually, someone that's on harder drugs, as you said, heroin or what have you, can get to the age of 56 before their body shuts down. This is within 2 years, a major organ is shutting down. It's not working.
And do you know what? It's you'd be surprised how many phone calls I get. I get them every week from parents whose kids have got on ketamine, asking me to meet them. And it's cheap.
Yeah,
it's actually, a lot of people think it's used in veterinary. A lot of people say it's horse tranquilizer. It's not. They use it to sedate animals in vets, but it's actually used just as much in hospitals for people that are allergic to morphine. Yeah. So if you're allergic to morphine, a lot of people are. They give you ketamine. It's a painkiller as well.
Yeah.
And you look and you think, my God, this ignorance around drug awareness is massive.
Yeah.
It's massive. You look at prison sentences with drug-related crime, violence, shoplifting. Take the drugs away, our prisons are 50% less full. Take the drugs away, crime in our community is reduced. Yeah. Take the drugs away, the gangs can't survive. Yeah. So there's less boys stabbing each other. Because
even with that, I think, again, this lady that I was listening to, she was saying that there's special emojis that they send out. Yeah. There's different apps where you can just go and literally you can get it delivered to you within 10 minutes. And it's just so easily, and it's almost like the Deliveroo. Which is just crazy that this is going on. As you say, it's cheap. But then you've got universities where kids are staying in halls. There's no adults around. There's no parents. There's no.
The ice cream deli stopped. It's the young adults.
Exactly. They're left to their own devices, and it's literally causing a pandemic.
Yeah, and as I said, there's a few people that follow me. I follow them who do similar work to me. I've never seen them at universities. Yeah. And you'd have thought, doing my job 15 years, I'll be at least going 10 universities a year, not been to one.
Yeah.
And it just shows you that you look and you think, my God, how can... And that's the big question we're asking here. Are you giving these kids enough information about drugs that will one day, if they take it, cause them harm? We're not saying everyone who experiences trauma falls into addiction. Far from it. Far from it. Some people can just go along, take a drug, and they like it, and then it becomes dependent on it. But as I said, it's that ignorance is more than people think, and more needs to be done. Yeah, more needs to be done. Definitely. Every child deserves to have some sort of drug awareness education, and I strongly believe every child needs to have some sort of someone to speak to. Yeah, have the confidence, and I strongly believe that we all need some sort of therapy. I still meet up with people in recovery. I might be coming up, God willing, and for 20 years in sobriety in December. But I'm still so much learning, I'm still discovering stuff about myself because, I'm in the world now of consciousness. It's a big thing now. I read a book about it, but it's about being awake enough and having that courage to talk about how I feel and choosing the company I keep very carefully. Life can be so simple. It's just, I think, isolation's a big one. Yeah. A big one.
Do you know, it's funny actually, because someone said to me, someone I work with the other day, she said, you really love your job, don't you? I said, I love my job because of the impact that it has on people. That's number one. But I really love my job because of the growth and the awareness that it gives me, because of all the things that I get to see and hear, and I've got to constantly be looking inwards. It helps me to stay aware and keep developing and keep growing. Yeah. And actually, I'm not saying that just because I'm a therapist. Everyone should have that opportunity to do that. And therapy is a great way to do it. Connection with others, talking, all of those tools But again, there's still such a stigma attached to it because there is a lack of education on it so early on in life.
You know what is important as well? I was saying this, funny enough, a little while ago to someone. I was saying about, do you know one of the worst things you can do to a human being is put them in prison? Now, I'm not saying you ever haven't been to prison, but when you put a man in prison, you take away everything he's got, like that.
Yeah.
You put him in a tiny little room with another man. Yeah, you become friends with that man. I've had thousands of cellmates, hundreds of cellmates. But what you got to remember is that I've been. That it's not. Prison is a punishment of mental health. Mental. You think.
Yeah.
You lie down for 24 hours down in your bed, and you sit there and you think. You know, whether it's the crime you committed, the people you loved that you miss. It's a real mental torture. Prison.
People that you hurt.
You can understand now why men take drugs in prison
Yeah.
to switch off. I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. But then there's another step I'm going to now, which I'm going to talk about, which actually people do probably and not aware of it in their community, is I've been in solitary confinement only for a couple of nights where they lock you up. You've got no TV, you've got a mattress on the floor, and that is it. And what happened was I wasn't very violent in prison, but I was just gone in on methadone, and the doctor, they wouldn't give me my script, which I was on. So I started to have a little bit of a rear up, and they just come and grabbed me and took me down to solitary confinement. And for them 2 days of being completely locked up and not seeing anybody, the only people that would come to my cell, I'd get a little bit of exercise, was to screw with my bit of food. And then for them 2 days, it really reflected on me how that I actually did this for years, not being in prison, with addiction and trauma problems. And there are lots of people probably out there today that are sitting in bedrooms and houses where they've got an opportunity to pick the phone up and ask for help and speak to someone, maybe not a family member, they're not confident enough to, or it might be something they've got on with their family member. So let's go and speak to someone independent and reach out and go, do you know what, I'm you know, and get therapy. You know, I did that early recovery, you know, when I sat with counsellors and people that I knew that they didn't know me, I didn't know them. But when I come out from an hour with them, and it was just so much, I got rid of that stuff. I started doing the steps, and it was like, started to look at and I thought, wow, man, I just feel so lighter. Yeah. I felt so lighter, and I felt free. But there are people out there, you know, I meet quite a few of them in recovery, early recovery, and you go out and just that isolation.
How mad though, isn't it, that it took you to sort of be in solitary confinement to sort of make that connection? Well, hold on a minute, I'm locked up here, but actually I've been locked up of my own accord, through my own doing, because I would just lock myself away in a room on my own anyway. Yeah,
I've been, you know, the last few years of my using, you know, these crack dens, I'll be there, just me and another addict. She didn't use that. He said I was out my head, sitting on the sofa and
no
getting
one's talking,
and you know, that was just like, you know, like, it's just isolated. That's addiction got me. But I'm just trying to say, the bit I'm trying to look at is that there are probably a lot of people out there that might not have a drug problem, never took a drug in their life, but they might be sitting there really lonely, and they might, you know, or they might be feeling really depressed, and they might want someone to talk to. We all need someone to talk to, but some people might have gone through some trauma, never ever spoke about it, and carried it for years, whether it been a divorce, whether it been losing a partner, whether it been losing a kid, you know, and just kept it just that for years, been with them. And they've not had the courage or to pick up the phone and say, you know, I need to speak to someone, and then go and sit with someone, a complete stranger, and then just offload without being judged. It stays private.
Yeah.
You go home and you think, do you know what? And I'll get some kids come up to me and say, do you know what? I want to say something. I've never told anyone this before, but you know, I lost my dad through drugs. These are children. The amount of kids I get. I mean, I'm living with my nan. My mum and dad couldn't take care of me. But you know, one of the most amazing things I've ever had, you know, is kids want to come up and say, you give me closure in 1 hour. Because my mum and dad left me because of drugs, and I resented them. But now you've explained to me that addiction is an illness, and because I talk about my daughter, leaving her as a kid, before she was born. And I think the kids now get to understand that, you know, that little 1 hour with them, even though it was just talking about the whole Scott, and it just gave me a little bit of a closure and a bit of peace. And that can move forward a little bit. It's that
emotional honesty as well, isn't it?
100%.
Like, it makes such a big difference. Kids need explanations. I think there's been too much of this sheltered, the kids are here, or actually the more that they're aware, the more that they can get their heads around it or be encouraged to ask questions and talk about it and express how they're feeling around it, rather than shying away in a corner. Mum's gone, dad's gone, I can't speak about it because everyone just shushes me. You know, they should be able to speak about it.
And I think as I said, I think, you know, children should be able to, you know, speak, and you said it, and I think a lot of adults probably struggle with this, maybe more than kids. Emotional honesty. Because people can be in certain relationships they don't want to be in because they can't be emotionally honest with someone. They can be unhappy for years. You know, it's just... I watched some podcasts of these psychologists, and, you know, you look at some and you look and you talk about, you know, emotional honesty sets us free. Might be painful. Might be painful. But it won't be painful for long.
No.
And you've been in so much pain for years, and by addressing it, you can set yourself free.
It lifts, doesn't it? You're able to lift it.
Let go.
Yeah, you let go. You're able to find the way forward. And yeah, there will be times where you may be triggered and things will come up for you. But how you respond to it is different because you have worked through it. You're processing it. But also, I think one of the biggest things I see in the work that I do is we're not taught to be compassionate for ourselves. In our upbringings as children, or that we can make mistakes, or that we can get it wrong, or but that compassion for yourself, for your experience, what you've been through, what, you know, what's happened to you, and even how you've responded to it is so important to help you move forward. Yeah,
and even I learned by speaking, and I've had some difficult times in them 20 years, please believe me. You know, I've had some really emotional, difficult times, and I'll probably get them moving forward. But, you know, I always had that ability that when I was in a bit of pain, or, you know, I reached out. You know, husband, you know, and I reached out, and it helped me. You know, I'll always need help, always. The worst thing I can do for myself is isolate and not speak about what's going on for me. All right. My job's great. It's therapy for me, going to schools, talking to children. I don't rely on to stay clean and sober. You know, I've got 6 weeks off now. I'll find stuff to do. I'll find I'll be all right. You know, I'll be all right. I'll be fine. But I strongly believe that the more we can be emotionally honest with each other, and I think it sets a nice household when you've got a lot of emotional honesty in the household. Because you also, you know, especially if you've got a family with kids, and you can come in, they can sit with you and say, you know what, Mum, you know what, Dad, I've got stuff going on for me today. Instead of going locking themselves in their room. And watching some bullshit on the internet.
Getting lost in a world,
And, you know, like striving for this, you know, these likes and this fame that a lot of young people, you know, they grew up with it. You can't blame them. No. It's been ingrained in them from a kid. And you look and you think, you know, what's more value? The people you follow that want to recognise you in the street, or your mum downstairs that's making you tea today and washing your clothes and tidying your room, you know.
Or who's going to be able to guide you better? That person that's trying to care for you, or all these people that you're trying to impress, and you know, it's...
And kids have sadly grown up with that. And I get the social media ban, which, you know, I don't know if it'll work or not. I think kids have just grown up with it, and it's in their blood. And they get, you know, apparently in Australia, like 60% of the kids have got around it now, you know what I mean? So it's just, I get it that some people have lost their kids to social media. I get it, I totally understand that, and, you know, respect it. But, you know, you'll never stop kids going on social media. But I think, I thought about it the other day, I thought to myself, I wonder if people's mental health was a lot better before the internet come along. 1,000%.
Was.
Kids in the street, on their bikes, skateboards, I was,
do you know what? It's funny actually, because I watched this video on social media, admittedly, and it was a dad and his kid, and it was done in jest, but he was saying to the kid, like, when I was younger, he said, if I misbehaved, I was told I had to stay in the house. And the kid went to him, that's not a punishment. And he said, no, but for me, that was a punishment. He said, because we wanted to be outside with our friends, playing, connecting, socialising, talking to people. He said, if you were naughty now and I said to you, go outside, the kid went, that would be the worst thing in the world you could do
completely
to me.
360.
Complete 360.
I get it. It's important that we communicate and sit down and we have meals and as I said, but unfortunately I think now, not just the internet itself, because obviously it's a great platform for all of us, but I'm on about some of the content on it. can be quite poisoning for kids. You know, as you said, they can go online now and press a button and have some drugs dropped off. That's terrifying. That's terrifying, you know. And because if one, they don't know they're buying it off, two, they don't know what they're buying, three, they don't know what it's going to do to them. And then later on down the line, we've got problems. Whereas maybe if that kid that was going to click that button would have been spoken to before and said, right, if you take this drug, this was going to happen to you. Then, like most boys I say to, you know, you get involved with gangs, it's a point of no return. You will pick up consequences. Gang members do two things: carry weapons, sell drugs. Join a gang, you've got to do the same thing. And the boys go, hold on a minute, well, and there are gangs now floating around. The scores in the other day, kids with autism, the most vulnerable kids in the community. But they've got to get independent soon. Their parents want them to go out. Well, keep them indoors forever, but they're the most vulnerable kids in the community. They're now with me, now they're super clued up. Yeah, they know now. You know, stranger danger, people coming up trying to groom them. You know, I say to them, all they want from you is a yes. If you say no, they'll leave you alone. That was your target. I wasn't easy to target the kid. I'll smoke your weed, I'll join your gang, I'll carry your knife.
You just wanted to fit in.
Because I did. Older boys, gang members, protect me, my community. I needed that. I didn't have my dad there. My dad was a tough guy, you know. But obviously he's an alcoholic, and you know, sadly that's why Mum and Dad split up. But what I'm trying to say is that, so it's just about, as I said, all of us adults, I think, there's lots of adults out there that you know, have had some trauma, they probably never spoke about it, they've buried it, stuff with their parents even. You know, it's a generation thing, isn't it? And
100%.
And you can reach out and go, do you know what, I'm struggling and I want a bit of help, and then you go back a week later and you have therapy. Some people have therapy for years. For years. Might, you know.
And do you know what, sometimes I think people, again, think it has to be the big things. It doesn't always have to be the big things. It can just be your experiences. You know, even going and sitting in a classroom and feeling different or awkward or uncomfortable, shy to speak, that leaves its mark. That's a little trauma for you because you felt uncomfortable in that moment. But if it's not addressed and it's not dealt with, it gets bigger and it gets bigger, and the impact starts to go over the years in your life through to your partnerships, your relationships, your marriages, your kids.
I call it a 5-year minefield. 12 to 18. That's 6 years, isn't it? 13 to 18, 5-year minefield. If you look at the majority of kids that get involved with drugs and alcohol, it's 13. You look at the majority of boys that kill each other with knives, it's between 15 and 18. That's the average age of knife crime with young people. So if you can nurture a young person from 13 earlier, up to 18, and come 18, if they've had any issues to deal with, they've dealt with them within 5 years. They're adults now. They're spiritually, emotionally and mentally well enough to
make good decisions.
Stick up for themselves and make good choices. As you know, and if you can get them to 18, they've not joined a gang, they've not got heavily involved with ketamine, they've not, you know, then there's a greater chance of them going off in life and becoming a productive member of society. And I strongly believe that it's at 13 to 18 that we miss opportunities, or a little bit before that if you want to, 11, 12. I
mean, even studies show it that a kid needs the influence of one adult to change the trajectory of their life. That's it. It's just one adult that's going to stand in that can make that difference and stop that kid from going down the route of prison, drugs, gangs, crime and all the rest of it, to living a fruitful life.
A normal way of living. Job, pay your bills. That's what life's about. You go to college, you go to school, you get a job, you do your best, you try and earn as much money as possible, you get a roof over your head, you have holidays. It's Aboriginal living, not wake up in crack dens or prison cells. Or mental hospitals. The place I woke up in.
If there's one message that you could share to people working in schools, safeguarding leads, anyone that's in working with children, what would that message be?
Can you guarantee 100% by not getting someone to come and speak to them about situations that could harm them, drugs, substance misuse or others with weapons, they won't one day go off and use a drug or pick up a knife? Can you guarantee that? Because that's why we have a policy called safeguarding. And safeguarding means protect from harm. Well, my experience is that addiction causes harm. And we do know that when boys go out and use knives, that's the pinnacle, that's the most harmful thing you could do to anyone. So if you work with children, boys or girls, academics will not stop them from taking drugs. Academics won't stop them from picking up knives. We have to go a little bit further than that. So we have to stretch our safeguarding beyond the gate, because all this drug gang stuff, knife crime, is not in the classroom, it's on the street. And where do our kids live? On the street. So I think we need to stress our safeguarding. Every kid that comes into our care, we need to invest time and money in them and get them spoken to, and hopefully they won't got to wake up in these dark places like many young people eventually do. And it's not about missed opportunity, we've got to consider every kid. Ignorance can be harmful. You know.
And don't just wait for it to get to a crisis situation.
No, that's what I say.
I think there's a lot of that throughout a lot of services is waiting until it gets to crisis. It doesn't need to get to crisis before intervention
that old cliche,
happens.
you know, when the shit hits the fan, we can all act. Well, like, no, let's try and do something before that. Look at prime example, Middlesbrough College. Prime example in all its glory. The worst town in the country for drug-related crime. No one's getting drug-related crime education. Put 2 and 2 together, you're coming up with 5. It doesn't make any sense. You've got money, you will find money, the council got money, put your hand in your pocket, get your act together and get every kid in Middlesbrough spoken to from an early age. You will eventually reduce crime, violence in that community without a doubt. Because 80% of the people in there today committing a crime went to school there. And yes, we'll, you know, if you went out now and asked every single heroin addict and crack addict, spice addicts, do you regret taking in drugs? They're not going to sit there and go, you know, no, I love it. Of course you don't love it. You ain't washed for a week. You've got no teeth. You know, you live in some crack den. But imagine that. That's what my mum lived with. Not knowing where I was. I mean, she did see me. I looked rotten. You know, it's addiction for us today.
That worry, that heavy feeling.
Can you imagine that? You carry that for years.
Oh, don't.
You can't, you know, it's all you think about all the time. And that dreaded knock on the door one day, which many parents will get today. And I'm pretty confident, because I say, some schools say to me, oh, your talk's too hard hitting. I say, well, how about go to a funeral and watch your mum bury your daughter heroin? Because I'm pretty confident that mother would have welcomed my talk to their kid, no matter how hard hitting it was when they were kids. They would have welcomed it with open arms.
You can't sugarcoat the conversation, can you?
That's the problem today.
You can't dress it up.
I'm not getting into politics here about woke. But we've got to stop fluffing it all up, and we've got to start being a real, you know, a bit of tough love here with the kids. Tough love. It's important.
I always say this, I think it's gone from one side to the other. Maybe like older generations, children were seen and not heard, and things were too hard. Now it's almost like they're too protected, and it's, oh God, they can't experience that, and they can't see this, and they can't see that, and that's not preparing them for life or the real world, or you're not giving them any resilience. It's like recently with the hot weather, some schools closed, the parents were complaining. Some schools stayed open, the parents were complaining. Well, you can't win, can you?
But in the long run, as I said, it's you know, there's more to be done. We could all do a little bit. There's much more to be done. You know, as I said, I'm looking on LinkedIn a lot of these. I follow a lot of these prison organisations. They're saying now that, you know, I was in a prison in Guy's Marsh 5 weeks ago in Dorset. I spoke to 20 men. So they come in. I said, you know, we had a really good chat. I went to an hour, 2.5 hours we was there. I loved it. Then I said, how many men in this prison? And this is from the horse's mouth. This is from the prisoners, right? Who live with the prisoners. They said 500, around 500. I said, how many on spice? He said about 250. He said, one guy said, I witnessed 10 overdoses in one day. 10.
In one day?
In one day, witnessed 10 on spice. In one day.
Oh my God.
So he come off the wing, he's on a drug-free wing now. So I speak to the men on drug-free wings because they've had enough. Some men that just can't, they're locked, you know, you're trying to get off drugs and they lock you in a man with a cell, he pulls out drugs. So they're getting a drug-free wing.
It's prison. You're not even meant to get any drugs in prison.
No, listen, please believe me. There's always been drugs in prison, always. And you look and you think, what chance have they got? They go into prison for drug-related crime.
But then they can't get away.
You try and rehabilitate them, you know, and you get out and you're looking, thinking, reoffending just so high. They're building more prisons apparently. You're thinking, well, if they'd done more work with prisoners on addiction, you'd be knocking them down. You better knock prisons down.
So they're preparing for more and more people to go in. It's mental.
You should be knocking prisons down. You know, if you reduce that prison bill, 6.5 billion a year, taxpayers' money, it's a lot of money. Now, I'm not sure, what's 1% of 6.5 billion? 65 million? I'm not good at maths. Imagine investing 1% of tax of that 6.5 billion into therapy, early intervention drug education, 65 million. You get every kid spoken to about it. But as I said, I'm not in politics. I'm not charged with the purse strings. I'm not the whoever it is. But you know, there's so much more to be done, and I think it's just about going back to the money. There's got to be more investment. All them schools that couldn't get me, There was 20 schools this year that couldn't get me.
Because they couldn't pay, they didn't have the finance.
That's 20,000 kids didn't get to hear me this year. I spoke to, I normally speak to about 70,000. I spoke to 30, I think. Yeah, about 30, 35,000 I spoke to. That sounds like big numbers, but please believe me, I can do 1,000 a day. So you're looking, you're thinking, they cut all that funding, which wasn't a great deal of money.
No.
To get 20,000 kids educated.
Yeah.
We can't foresee their future.
No.
But at least give them something. So even though, as I said, I go to some school sixth formers, they might be already dabbling in something.
But again, you
understand that
seed.
if it does start getting dark and out of hand,
there's a way out.
There is an option, and that's where we come into the therapy. There is. If you do start to struggle, whereas if I wouldn't have gone to their school, they might have just continued using and end up, I don't know, dead. We don't know, do we? So you got to open up. What I say, there's always light at the end of a tunnel. Always. Yeah. Always. But you have to reach out and ask. People don't come and knock it. I didn't have counsellors coming knocking on my door saying, "Come, I had to make them efforts. I had to reach out, make them phone calls. I had to turn up at these meetings. I had to get on a bus or train and turn up because, I wanted a better way of life. Yeah. And I've got that today. I would say for all of us. Yeah. Whether you're a drug addict, alcoholic, whether you're, wherever, we all need someone to go and speak to, whether it's a family member, whether it's someone outside of our family. As I said, when I first got into recovery, I knew nobody there, no one. They were strangers to me, but I knew they were willing to help me. And that, going back to that again, being emotionally honest, is a gift. It really is a gift. It can be painful, but as I said, it's long way worth it. So I strongly believe that we all need someone to speak to in any form. So yeah, great. It's been really good to come here today. And may our work continue. Yeah, reaching out, helping others. We get some out of it. Yeah. Don't get me wrong. I ain't doing this for them. I'll do it for me as well because I get that. That spiritual connection as well, helping others, kids, adults. Younger the better. I love the young kids. They're so much chatty. As I was saying, year 4. You're little than year 4. Yeah. I go to schools in year 4. Some people say to me, "Why do you go to primary schools and speak to like year 4, 5, 6?" And I say to them, "Well, how many primary school kids are now in prison for murder?" They go, "None." I say, "How many primary school kids are now out there in shop doorways begging for crack?" But everyone that is out there now in a prison because they use a knife, everyone that is out there today begging in some shop doorway was once in primary school. So my job is to make sure every kid I speak to from the age of 8, 9, 10, 11 never get to wake up in places I did. And these kids hang on to every word I say. They go home, they Google me, your daughter, all these years later, remember me, I'm not saying every kid's going to be a saint after meeting me, but I'm pretty confident that the majority of kids I get to speak to never will have to wake up in some crack den or some prison cell. And if I can do that, they've got a great chance of going off, like your daughter now, adult, get a job, partner, and give you, as a mother, which you deserve, peace of mind. And I think every parent deserves that, So yeah, may our work continue, and it's been great. Nice to meet you again.
Yeah, thank you. Nice.